Let's explore a few of the probable implications of holograms and fractals, or of looking at reality through the paradigm of holograms and fractals. Now, one of the principles of a hologram is that at a low-level resolution, you can find the whole within the part. So if you break a hologram into pieces and look at it through the right angle, you can find the whole within the piece. Now, this opens the door to viewing reality through a holographic lens that, if you look deeply enough into the piece, any piece of reality, you, me, ground, a planet, some small piece of all that is, you can work backwards and find the whole. For example, you look at the sky. Well, the sky contains a certain amount of water. Well, the water in the sky might lead us to wonder, where did it come from? So you might be able to see a lake or infer a lake within a sky. You look at a plant growing, you might be able to see the nutrients, see the soil. So within the piece, crudely, so it takes more and more insight, more and more perception, more and more understanding to see the whole within smaller and smaller parts. It doesn't take a lot of perception or extrapolation or imagination to see the whole within the whole. Right? To look around and see reality in reality. But to see all of reality, in other words, if you look closely enough into a person, you can see the family. If you look at a family, you can see the culture. If you look in the culture, you can see the species. It's easier to go from one to the other than from person to species, or from person to all that is. Right? But it's not impossible to make the jump. Now, this holographic aspect of reality has a couple of implications. One of the things it implies is that whatever we're doing, wherever we are, whatever we're thinking about, that we are dwelling on or focusing on, right? And a focus implies a repetition, right? What we're focusing on, there's all these data points streaming by our awareness. They come and they go, and they come and they go, and they come and they go. But what we focus on, or ruminate about, or reflect on, is some aspect. There's some part of that stream of data, that stream of energy and information that we're focusing on. It could be jealousy of this or that. It could be nutrition. It could be making money. It could be being important. There are areas that our attention is drawn to within the complexity of all that is. And having been drawn into that area and captured, we move in a circular direction. Well, one of the things that we can kind of learn about this from the holographic element of reality is that we'll find this pattern anywhere and everywhere. This is why, one person who tends to have the habit or the self-image of being unimportant, not valuable enough, right? We'll find that everywhere. You know, they go into a store and the clerk is playing with their phone, and obviously they're not valuable enough to be given the full attention of the clerk. And they go outside and someone almost backs into them, and see, another person isn't valuing me enough to look where they're going. Look at me, I'm right here. I could have been, you know, I could have died, right? Because the idea, the pattern has set in that I'm not valuable and it's wrong and something needs to be done about it, or I'm not valuable and there's nothing that can be done about it. And you know, they'll go to work and they'll find someone else that's being paid more than they are, and that's because I'm not valuable enough. And so there's a pattern there, right? And a pattern will follow us and will find us until we resolve it, right? Because data, energy is flowing by, right? But there are some areas where we get stuck, right? We're driving along and then we get stuck and we circle, right? We get in a rut. The attention goes in and goes in and goes in and goes in, but it doesn't exit, right? It's a vortice. It captures our attention, right? Well, our job is to break out of the vortice, right? If it's a tailspin in a plane coming down, our job is to break out of the tailspin, if possible. Before imploding, because stuck energy, whether it's a car that's wheels are spinning or a mind that's wheels are going around and around, the challenge is to find, how do we get out, right? With a car, maybe we go a little forward, put some sand, or we put some, jack it up and put some tires, or we push it, right? Or we tow it, right? How do we get out of a rut? That's also holographic in nature, right? Because the same principle that allows us to be towed out of a rut when our cars our car wheels are spinning in the mud. Well, what do you need? You need a tow rope, but not just any tow rope. You need a tow rope that won't break. Right? This is a little bit like trust. In a relationship, when you're traumatized and stuck and you're frightened of the unknown, or you can't get traction in a given environment, you need a tow rope. But not just any tow rope. You don't need a tow rope that someone drops when you're just about to get out of the rut and then you slide down worse than before the tow rope, right? Because when you go forward, you can also go backward again. You can snap back with more momentum if the tow rope breaks or if someone puts it down. So you need a tow rope, and a slack tow rope isn't. You need a force in addition to your force to overcome the resistance of the environment. It's not going to work. 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 Maybe it'll work. No, it's not going to work, right? You need someone to say, yes, it will work. And here's how it's going to be. And we're going to do this and this and this. And hold on here, right? Hold on. We're going to do this and this and this. It's going to work. And their certainty and their commitment, along with your wish that it works, right? But your lack of confidence, etc., together, you get out of the rut, right? So one of the holographic, implications of reality being holographic is that what works in a physical environment can lead to understanding about what works in an emotional environment, right? You could say that the mental, emotional, and physical dimensions of reality are different levels of density, right? Because a thought is very light without any feeling. You know, if you just think a thought, 10-ton bridge, whatever, but you make no connection with it, and there's no feeling. It's a very light energy, right? But if you start building a relationship with it and imagine yourself in relation to that bridge, falling off the bridge, being hit by a car on the bridge, crossing the bridge successfully, now it's got emotion, so it's getting denser, it's getting more real. And then if you actually build the bridge, it's getting very dense, very real. If you walk across the bridge or have certain experiences on the bridge, it's becoming denser, right? And so you can also you can see that you can explore the holographic nature of reality and thoughts and feelings and it's like the hologram is getting more and more dense as it moves from thought to thought with a lot of feeling, to thought with a lot of feeling and action, to thought, feeling, and action in the reality that those thoughts, feelings, and actions have created. Now, what's interesting is kind of looking at the intersection of fractals and holograms. So what a fractal, the principle of fractals are that, first of all, they're never ending, right? So they're a process of these repetitions in time. Now, they're never exactly the same, right? A fractal is not an exact copy, right? A copy would just go round and round and round and round and round. But a fractal tends to, it's similar, right? It's a little bit like what happens with, biology. You know, a person is a fractal of a family. It's, I am not exactly like my father. I'm not exactly like my mother, but there are echoes, right? The intergenerational perpetuation of a species is fractal in nature. You can see in the sympathy, the antipathy, and the synthesis of both parents, you can find the parents within the child. But you can also find something that's different. Right? So reality is fractal in nature. And one of the implications of the fractal paradigm of looking at reality, somewhat similar to the holographic element, or the holographic paradigm of looking at reality, is that the present contains the future fractally, right? You can have a probability field emerging out of the present. If you fully see the present, you can see a strong probability of the future. If you fully see the past, it can help you to understand and perceive its correlation with the present. And if you fully understand the present, you can see elements of the past. So how does this, express itself, right? Well, one of the things that we have our current idea of the universe being created out of nothing, right? It's quite a leap, a little bit of faith. Out of nothing, poof, right? The Big Bang, right? This tiny, tiny, dense form of energy. This big, right? Can you imagine trying to get a single planet to fit into this amount of space, right? That's what we're asked to believe, right? That the entire universe, with trillions upon trillions of planets, much bigger than billions of planets, trillions of planets, stars, all once were fit into nothing, and then this big, right? And you talk about woo-woo and and airy-fairy and all that kind of stuff, right? No scientist has ever gotten a single planet, to get this small, right? But that's where it all came from, right? Nothing. Well, you look at that and you think of this tiny little shape, right? Getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it divided, right? And then it divided and it divided and divided. And eventually we have the whole universe, a complex relationship of all of these shapes that just came out of nothing, right? Well, if we look at reality through a fractal lens, we should be able to look around at microcosms of that pattern. And so we look at the birth of a human being, right? Well, there's an egg, right? There's an egg. Semen touches it, and out of something, frankly, but out of nothing, if we're to use that narrative, you have a single-celled organism, forms, right, in the void, right? And that one becomes two, and that two becomes four, and grows in complexity, right? And a larger shape begins to form in the womb, right? In the ocean, the liquid of the mother. And after a certain amount of time, right, the oceanic being becomes the out of the ocean. The infant crawls out of the ocean. And after crawling for a time, lizards, crocodiles, etc., then stands up. And after developing the reptilian brain, right, the crocodile brain, then the animal brain, the instinctual limbic brain of doing this and that, exploring. Then later comes reason, comes rationality, comes words, and the consciousness that words give rise to. Right. Then we clone and we copy the family, the diet, the words, etc. Then we move into adolescence. We reject. We descend from the garden, right? We descend from the harmony of the family into critical thinking, into antithesis, from sympathy, the sympathy of the child, into antipathy, to questioning. I thought you said we don't tell lies, Dad, right? I just saw you with that woman. Why did you lie to Mother, right? She asked who that, right? Critical thinking, from sympathy to antipathy. And then to synthesis, right? To not just sympathy, not just antipathy, but a new pattern of combining elements, accepting positive elements, rejecting negative elements, inventing new elements, and you have synthesis, right? And then you recreate it all again. Just a little bit different. You could say that the birth of the universe is recreating itself fractally in the birth of a child. You could say the evolution of species on the planet, which is another fractal pattern, is happening in the growth and development of every infant. Right? From simple slime to more and more complex organisms, from an oceanic life to being 9 months in the womb, and the 9 months, a fractal representation of the amount of time we spent in the oceans. And the 1 year, the point, how long does it take to stand up and get off of all fours, right? To become erect, to lose the tail. And the sympathy and copying blindly of what is, and then how long does it take, how many millions upon millions of years does it take a species to develop a rational brain, to be able to speak? There were billions upon billions of years with no words, and then words. And so the hologram, or the holographic paradigm, suggests that if you look closely within any part, you see a blurry version of the whole. And the fractal pattern of reality, that if you look at the life of a single child, you will see the life cycle of the entire species. If you look at the life cycle of the entire species, you will see the evolution of the planet. But you can also see the evolution of the universe coming from something very small, dividing, and becoming something more and more complex over time. Now, in a romantic relationship, you can also see the wonder in a truly sacred, meaningful relationship. You go from not seeing, not understanding anything, to falling in love as an infant, right? To beginning to feel attraction, maybe seeing some of mother, some of father. We tend to be attracted to people that correlate with the patterns of parents, right? The woman marries her father, the man marries her mother. In various other forms of partnering and relating, the more feminine person marries the more masculine person's, that is close in some way to the archetype, to the masculine that they became familiar with. And a new identity is born in the sympathy and in the antipathy, right? You go through the honeymoon stage, which is the sympathy, and then you go into the rejection stage, which is the adolescent, the antipathy. And then the question, do you grow up? Or did your family system collapse and become arrested in an adolescent state? So you just enter sympathy, enter antipathy, reject the other person, and do it again. Enter sympathy, reject the other person, and do it again. Enter sympathy, enter antipathy. And see, no one grew up in your family. No one is completing the maturation process. And so you're just going sympathy, antipathy, end, sympathy, antipathy, but then you're spiraling around, right? You're moving from one to the other, and the question is, can you make it to synthesis? can you make it to adulthood? So where do you see these patterns in your own life? Fractal patterns, holographic patterns. Where do you not see them? Right? Is there any way that you can apply either the fractal pattern or the holographic paradigm in order to resolve an area that you're looping, an area that you're stuck in your life?